So good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. We made it another week. Thank goodness. Thank you all for joining today's Congenital Heart Surgery Database User Group call. On the call today, we have from the STS myself, Leanne Jones, Database Manager for Congenital Database, Carol Crone, Senior Clinical Manager for the STS National Databases. We have Donna McDonald, Director of Quality, Jane Hahn, Associate Director of Quality. We also have Addie Dolan on from the STS as well. From IQVIA, we have Melanie Bent, we have Jeanette Hanna. Looks like Melanie and Jeanette maybe are only two so far today. So there may be some additional IQVIA colleagues joining in here in just a bit. First of all, I'm going to run through today's agenda to get us started. I will touch on a couple of quick housekeeping items per usual, provide a quick STS update, turn things over to Melanie for our IQVIA update, and then we will finish off with the Q&A portion. And again, just a friendly reminder to please submit your questions via the Q&A function. Alrighty, for our housekeeping items, again, reminder that the July training manual has been updated and posted out on the STS website. The August training manual will be coming soon. That will be posted the first week of August, so that'll be coming soon. Appendix C has been updated again. So I did just check, and the new appendix is currently posted out on the STS website. It's located in version 341 data collection section under the additional resources heading. So, and it's been updated as of today. So be sure to go ahead and download the new Appendix C. For a quick harvest update, as you all are very aware, no harvest close date has yet been determined. I've spoken with several of you over the phone over the last few days, and I've shared, the task force does have a call next week on Tuesday, and we'll be discussing the spring and fall harvest in regards to the close date as well as reporting. So again, as you all are aware, we will give you 4 weeks notice prior to the close of the harvest, and we will have more information regarding the harvest next week after the task force call. So more information to be coming soon. For our STS updates, again, you all have seen this slide. These are the 9 procedures that were updated a few weeks, probably about, I think it was about a month ago, actually, today. A notification was sent out to the data managers on June 30th. Again, these are the 9 procedures that were added. Shortly after those updates were posted, many of you had reached out to me regarding the TOS and the DORV procedures that were added that were not assigned a stat score. I did receive the new stat scores for these procedures from the task force this week, and they are shown here on the slide. Harvest codes 3330 and 3340, you'll see have the same stat score as basically their parent harvest code 370 is TOS repair, ventriculotomy, and the transannular patch. The harvest codes 3330 and 3340 were basically considered children of procedure 370. And also similarly, you'll see that harvest codes 3410, 3420, 3430, and 3440 share the same stat score and stat category as its parent, the DORV, intraventricular tunnel repair. The idea behind not making new risk scores or stat scores for the TOS and the DORV codes is that the task force will address the stat scores after we accumulate data on these codes as they are used. And the group agreed that there was not a high likelihood that these child codes would involve appreciably a different risk from the parent codes 370 and 1180. So, and again, these stat scores have been added to the Appendix C and is currently posted out on the website for you to download. So next, I'm going to turn things over to Melanie for our IQVIA update.
Thanks, Leanne, and good afternoon, everybody. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's coming. We did share these last week, but we did have a couple of updates since then. So we do have a targeted release that will be occurring the weekend of August the 1st. So let's review the items that will be included with that release. Starting with the uploader, we do have 3 identified items. STS 3249 is related to a critical error that is triggering with the anti-tran-X infrarate data variable. Hopefully I got all of that. That is specific to instances where there is a decimal value that is being sent for the field, so it may not impact all. We did have to make a change for that field, so that will of course be corrected in August 1st. The next item is related to the NCAA other specified, Chrome both specified, and syndrome other specified. Specific to version 3.3, where users were getting messages saying that they were, those fields were being exceeded with 100 characters or more, but that was not the case when looking at the information being entered. It did not exceed 100, so there was a update that was needed there for that specific form version for those fields. Then next we have the STS 3528, which is for the vendor ID message, where it is indicating that the vendor ID being sent is not allowed. This is respective only to the 3.3 version, where in the data spec it was listed to have a data length set to 8 characters. We did get the approval from STS to increase that. So there is an increase that we will be pushing in, which will allow 25 characters. Next, we have items related to the missing variable report. 3251 is related to the surgeon NPI that will be updated. Next is 3200. That is related to the variable that is displaying for ICU PUN, ICU unique ID. That should not be displayed on the report. We have made the changes for that. Next is 3344 and also 3505, both related to the medications listed below in regards to the parent variable that needed to have the logic updated so that the actual child fields that are listed here are not set to missing if the parent is not set with the expected value of greater than 0. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. We do have issues that are currently under review and will be targeted for the next, so this will be after August 1st. We will have these additional items addressed. So these are related to the missing variable for the first 2, where we're updating logic. For the first one, 3356, this is related to the MT365 stat variable, where we need to include updated logic to consider the year of when the surgery actually occurred. Next is 3225, where the information for autologous transfusion is appearing on the report, and that information needs to also be updated in regards to that logic. Then we have the related information for the dashboard. Both are 3501 and also the 3389 logic updates related to those identified sections. So for 3501, right now, the cases that have no response for operative mortality, but the patient is flagged as being in the hospital, it is set to yes, those cases should not display missing for operative mortality. Those should exclude within the missing percentage if the patient is still listed as being in the hospital. And then the next one, again, related to dashboard update, we need to update logic and specify the demographic data version with that. The last item actually is not for all sites. So that's why I did put a little note, not impacting all sites, where 3527, the uploader is showing critical errors, and upon submissions, they are seeing differences in the numbers of cases that are being uploaded. So we are looking at those reported issues, but I wanted to just notify that this is under review for this site. And I think there was a question last week in regards to it. So I just wanted to make sure that I did flag this as an item. Okay, next slide. We do have some enhancements that also will be included in the August 1st release that I do want to make sure that everyone is aware of. It's related to the missing variable report specifically, where we have updated the mortality filter to include additional data variables if they are, of course, missing. So within this specific filter, and I'll do a demo a little bit in a few, and I'll basically show the section that I'm referring to for this report. But the additional variables that have been added is the admit date and the op type. We want to also point out that there are other variables that are considered within the mortality, but for the report, the following items that are listed here: primary diagnosis, primary procedure, and date of surgery, these are actually required coming in the door. So these are not variables that will be considered as missing, because we require them to come into the actual database to save the record. So usually what you would see if you do not have a primary diagnosis, primary procedure, or date of surgery is that you would encounter a critical error. Okay, so that is, just wanted to specify why those were not specifically added to the filter, because those would never be missing. The next update is related to an additional filter that has been added to the missing variable report to allow you to filter on index operations only. So there's another option if you just want to review index operations. We have added that filter to the report. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And we've discussed this, but also, again, just a reminder that we do have upcoming reports related to case eligibility for inclusion in the mortality analysis. Another is the primary procedure determination or assignment, being able to see that actual comparison of what you have selected within your case and what is available or recommended in the database. So that comparison report also is something that will be available. And then, of course, once we close the harvest and we're able to send the data to DCRI and they perform the risk adjustment on the data and that's returned, we will, of course, have future reports to display the risk adjusted information via a dashboard report. Okay, next slide. So I'm highlighting two common questions for this week. The first one we had from last week, but I'll leave it in regards to items that are currently missing on the existing non-analyzed dashboard, the existing dashboard. The question is always, when will those items be added? So we are continuing to, again, look through and enhance based on feedback, but this is an area in regards to the dashboard to, of course, include additional variables so that it's available for review. So again, once we have more information on the timing of when those enhancements are happening, I will, of course, or the team, IQVIA team, who's ever presenting, will be updating the community to know when that's coming. And then another one, this is item that came in, I believe, last week, and I wanted to share with the group because I have seen a couple of instances where different vendor DAT files encountered issues where the actual field was not populated in the DAT. So the question here is, the missing variable report is displaying a field as missing, but I verified it was entered in my software vendor application. Why is it missing? So the common issue that we're seeing is that once we review the actual DAT, so we see the screenshots that come from the vendor system, seeing that it was entered, and that's fine, but we have to take it another step when we're reviewing this. We then have to actually look at the DAT file. And so once we reviewed the DAT file, we were able to determine in this example, and this was premature birth, we looked at the DAT file and verified for the record in question that actual response was not available. And that's what you're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen where we have a screenshot of that variable. There's no response. And so within our system, when you review the case form, this is the actual record in our system. We opened the case form and we were able to verify again, there's no response. So in this instance, we do have to make sure that we clarify that if the information is not in the DAT file, it's not, of course, going to upload anything to the IQVIA system. So in this instance, we did advise that the user contact their vendor for assistance to review what happened in that instance. But again, this can apply to any other field. This is just one example that I pulled. So that's why a lot of times we tell you, please reach out to support, because we actually have to take a look and see what could be occurring. There's different flavors of this. So we just want to make sure that if you hear that it's a common issue, it's fine to hear that it's a common issue, but we still need you to, if you're encountering that, please let us know, because we want to make sure that we're able to assist you. And if it is something that's, if it's an issue that's already responded to and it's a known issue, we would like to at least confirm that with you and make sure that you get the assistance that you need. Okay, so I think the next slide is going to bring us into a demo. So let's take a look. Yep, I got it. Let's see. So I am going to share my screen. Let's see what we can do. I will bring up the application, and Leanne, I will go ahead and hit share.
Yep, I stopped share.
Okay.
Hey, Melanie, this is Carol. Just to clarify, or just for a little bit more information on that example you just showed,
Yes.
what ended up being the issue? Was the issue on the IQVIA side, or was it something a little bit different than on the IQVIA side?
It actually was not on the IQVIA side. In that example, the DAT file that was exported out of the software vendor system did not contain the value. So the value showed up as selected within in the software vendor system, because the user was able to show us that. They said, well, I have it selected. But then when they exported the DAT file did not pull the value for the record. So they needed to go back with to inquire with their vendors, the vendor support, to figure out what was occurring in that instance.
Yeah, that's really helpful to know, because sometimes I think you might be getting a lot of questions, and people are getting maybe it's just that there can be issues on multiple sides. So just because something isn't quite right doesn't necessarily mean that it's IQVIA, because there's a lot of different stakeholders that are managing this data. So it's good to know that there's different reasons for that. So thanks for the further explanation.
No, you're welcome, definitely. And again, that's why we always, even though a scenario or a reported issue may sound similar, a lot of times, again, we still want to encourage you to reach out to support so we can confirm and make sure that that's what's encountering. Sometimes it may be an issue in which we do have an issue which, again, is related to surgeon NPI, for example. Surgeon NPI, I am seeing an issue which this is slated for the August 1st. Okay, so just wanted to throw that out there, where the value is showing in the surgeon NPI field, but for some reason the missing variable is showing it as missing. So again, we do have that as an August 1st item, but you know, that's an example in which it's truly at this point that's an IQVIA issue. But again, just make sure you reach out to support and we can go ahead and review that and get it confirmed for you. Okay, so can you see my screen, Leanne? Am I able to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You're good.
So let's go ahead and let's do a quick review of the different reports. There were some questions I think that came along after we met last week. So I'm just going to do another walkthrough. And then again, if you have any questions, if you need some clarification, please make sure to go ahead and put those questions in the Q&A. And then we can go ahead and get those answered. We will have enough time to cover those questions. So just plug those in. Again, if you have an existing ticket that you also need follow-up on, go ahead and put the ticket number in that so that I am able to make sure, and I think we have, I'd have to go back and look, our support representatives to make sure that they can take a look at that too. Okay, so let's take a look at the DQR. At this point, and I won't assume everyone has done this. We may have some people that have joined and maybe they have not submitted as yet and have not seen this report. So I'm just going to take it from the standpoint of this is the first time we're going in. And so the first step, of course, is you're uploading your files. After you upload your files, and you of course use this interface here to upload your files, so I'll just take it to the step of I've already uploaded. I have my submission, which the uploader works per submission. The DQR that you review is per submission. So any records that are done within that submission, that is the feedback that you're going to get. So that snapshot in time of that submission. So this very first item that I have here was uploaded successfully, but I encountered two types of what we call validations. And these validations can be critical error or an error or a warning. So there's three available validation types. When you see a red circle with the white X, that indicates a critical error and no records, or those flagged records, let me clarify that, those flagged records basically are not, we are not able to save those records to the database. So you'll see that I have a total of 85 attempted records in this actual submission. So this is the total number of records that I attempted to submit. Out of the 85, 83 were accepted successfully, okay? So I encountered some critical error that basically prevented those records from coming in. And we'll take a look at the DQR so that we're clear on what those critical errors are. Next, you'll have a yellow X, and that indicates an error. And with those, we'll also take a look at, and that information you do need to review to see why those actual records were flagged as errors. All right. So in order for me to access this actual DQR, I would click on the View Reports link. That's going to open up another browser window for me. And in this browser window, I'm going to have different components within this report. The main thing, the first thing that I want to take a look at, you'll see that by default, I have some filters that are selected. If I wanted to review just the errors that are included within the submission, and I don't want to focus on critical errors, you could deselect critical errors, and that will basically just focus on the errors that are related to the report. You'll also see that there's a filter type that's called Operation Type 1 and 2. This will, of course, display cases that are flagged with either Op Type 1 or Op Type 2. Then you have other, so all other op types that are available will also display within the submission. But if you do not want to focus on any other op type, then you can go ahead and deselect that, and it's just going to display the records that are op type 1 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to just bring these back, but just to let you know that you have these filters available to be able to focus on the pieces or cases that you would want to review. So here it's the, let me just go here to this section. File-based issue is just going to show you the status of the submission, whether or not it passed or if it failed. So that information will display here. Okay, and usually it would have a message to let you know the state. So in this instance, it passed and the file upload was completed. In the center, you have the pie chart, validation alert summary, and here if you were to just left click and hold on your mouse, you'll see that a blue box appears. Once you release, it will then generate the additional sections within the report, and you'll see that the alerts by uploaded records, all of the records associated within the submission will display within here, and by default you will see that the items, the cells are selected, and that will populate all of the items that are listed down below, all of the messages that are related to the submission below. Okay, so the next item that I wanted to point out here, let's just see. I'm going to just focus on the criticals for the moment. Okay, so here is a scenario that I was talking to you about earlier, where if you do not have a primary diagnosis, so this scenario, this submission that I added, the following records, I have 2 records that did not include a primary diagnosis. That was left blank. And so in that instance, I'm going to have a critical error message that will appear on those records. So that is basically letting me know that those records will not save to the database. Okay. So let's see what else I would like to make sure you are aware of. Of course, the printing capability. So down, if you want to, of course, review the information that all of the results, you do have the ability to export that information. And so long as you have all of the information that you want to export selected, okay, you're able to right click on the section. You'll see that I just right clicked within that white space and it brought up an actual menu for me, and you have an option to export. And here in the option, if you're using a spreadsheet program like Google Pages, I believe, you could use that option to review in that application, the export table options. Export table or export table without formatting. And then you do have the option for Excel. So for Excel, I'm going to go ahead and just select this because I want to make sure that you are aware of this next menu that pops up where you should change the export option to active page. Change that option to active page. You can leave everything else as is and then select the option to export. And that will generate the results for you in an Excel format. Okay. All right. Then I have to see why. Let's see if should open for me. Let me just open it. Okay, and here is the actual export, and you will see that you have tabs down at the very bottom. You will have the information that you would need to review related to the results on the details table tab. So these are the results, and this was only for the errors. I didn't include the critical error in my results. So this is the list of results for the errors. And then you're able to, of course, use the Excel functionality to do any kind of filtering, formatting as needed in that result. Okay. All right. So That's data quality report. Let me just go ahead and navigate back to the next item that's available. On every single data quality report, there is an additional report available, which is called the critical summary. And we've been getting a couple of questions around the critical summary, so I want to make sure that we get some things clarified on how we actually generate results for this report. If you take a look, you'll see that you have options for dates. These dates are specific to your upload submission dates, okay? Not your surgery dates, your upload submission dates. So when I say upload submission dates, what am I referring to? I'm referring to the dates of when you actually uploaded files. So for example, I have 6/16 available, right, for a couple of these. I also have 4/29 available. I don't have anything else. Haven't been doing much uploads in this environment, but I do have a range that starts basically from April that goes all the way through June. Okay, so those are the dates that the report is looking for, all right, when we're doing our search. So if I were to just put in, even if I were to put in the beginning of January, it's going to look from the beginning of January until, of course, the end date that I entered. So let's take a look at these. I'll just start from January, even though I know I don't have any dates there, but basically you can look, it looks at the range. Okay. And I'll do through, what is that? I did June. I'll select Run Report. And here are the entries that I did. So these submission dates, it's looking at my upload dates, the time of when I submitted my actual files. So within the results, I also will be able to see the actual upload ID. And then within that actual submission, you will see that I will have the range of the first surgery date of what was included in that submission to the last surgery date. So in this instance, looks like I had 2 files that were included in this submission, for example. But then you'll see on this entry of 6/16/2020, I have my first surgery date, which is 1/2/2019 through 12/26/2019. And within that submission, which passed, so I can take a look at my status, and then I can look at within that submission, how many records did I have within that submission? And it looks like I had 447, and then successful number of records, 447. And I can look to see out of that submission, did I have any failed? Nope, it looks like I have my total number of records and a total number of success. They match, so no failed. And then were any of those records identified as records that had not changed? Nope, all of these records basically were new and newly entered and added to my site. So no records that had changed. And then if I wanted to go to that data quality report, that specific report to review, I have the actual entry available, this hyperlink that could bring me to the data quality report. All right, and of course that's going to open up in another tab. Okay, so just because I'm trying to be mindful of time, let's go ahead, let's go to the next section, which is going to be operational reports. And in the operational reports, we do have missing variable. And again, after August 1st, we will have, I told you about the enhancements, we will have on this parameter page another filter that will appear. And so at the next user group call, we'll go ahead and make sure that we can show that updated page so that everyone is aware of what's coming. But it will be another option, another filter that will appear on this parameter page that will allow you to filter on index cases. Okay, let me just do 2019 through December 2019. I'll select Apply Parameter. Okay. And here are my results. And then, of course, the other thing that will be updated in that August 1st release will be an update to the mortality filter. So this is the other section that if there are cases that are missing the admit date and op type, if it's missing either one of those, then it would display here. So those that filter will be updated and you would be able to see that. So just a review of this report. The filters will, of course, allow you to review specific variables if you wanted to focus on those. So you have all, mortality, anesthesia, and risk model. Just a note about the anesthesia. With anesthesia, if you're currently not participating in the anesthesia program, collecting those actual variables and have signed up with the STS, that information for anesthesia will not appear. You will not see the anesthesia variables on this specific report. You will see anesthesia related information on the data quality report, because if you send us the data for anesthesia, and even though you're not officially signed up, we're still accepting that data and we're validating that data, so the data quality report would provide that feedback. But when you are now going to review your missing variable information, if you're not signed up, there is you would need to contact the STS in regards to the sign up. But if you're not signed up, that information for anesthesia, those variables, that information will not appear on this report. So for this example, my actual site is not signed up for anesthesia. So I just wanted to show you this is the behavior that would occur, okay, if you were to select that and see no variables appear within that section. Okay, the other section you'll see, or other filtering that's available, is being able to, of course, filtering on the op type. So if you just want to focus on cases that are identified as op type 1 and 2, you do have that filter available. And then if you did also wanted to see all other op types, you do have that also available. But if you did not want to focus on your focus on those other cases, then basically you can deselect that and it would update the counts on the report. Okay. In each of the entries, you will see that there are, let's just take a look at, let's see here, I'll just choose one of these, last follow-up date. So once you select an actual entry, the results will display down at the bottom, and you will see that the listing of all of the patient cases are available. If you wanted to export, it's the same functionality. If you wanted to review on screen and maximize the actual results so that you can have a full list rather than the half screen view, you do have navigation available here. So just wanted to point that out. Okay. And of course, if you needed to review the actual cases, you have the hyperlink to be able to navigate to those cases. All right, so the next report that we would take a look at is the dashboard report. So let me just do, let's just do this. And I will select time period. And age group, I'll select all, and then I will select to view just index operations. So I will select yes, and then apply the parameters here. Okay, and let's get this generated. and we can take a look at each section. Another thing that I wanted to point out, I may have in the past, but you'll see at the very bottom there is a tab that says CHSD Participant Dashboard Report. If you right-click on that tab, you actually will see that there is an option that pops up that says Open Page in New Window. And this is very helpful, especially if you're trying to use more real estate on the page. So let's go ahead and just select that. It's going to open up another tab for you, and you're able to resize basically the dashboard report. It does take away, I just want to also point out, your parameters though. It does basically just take the bottom portion of the report and it expands that. So just know that the parameters, if you needed to go back and update the parameters for the dates or any of these options, you would have to go back to your main page or your main tab where you initially started. But I just wanted to at least share that you are able to resize that if you needed more space. Okay, so down below I have some results, and you'll see for each of the reports you're able to then of course navigate to that section. Again, we're still working with the STS to continue to enhance the dashboard, so items that you may not see here now, we are looking at adding those in the future. So each of these sections you're able to go in and review. I know the main areas that we usually get questions on is related to getting counts, related to the operation type. I probably need to go back and change my settings in regards to case results. Maybe the date that I put in didn't have any. But the main questions that we have gotten have been related to, of course, getting counts for the operation type. So you're able to review that information under the operative report, and you'll see that there is a variable here for operation type. And then we, of course, have gotten questions related to the mortality status, and I did give an update in regards to the operative mortality. We are looking at, of course, making sure that if the patient is still flagged as being in the hospital, that of course operative mortality should not show up as missing. So wanted to point that out, but this is where you would get your information regarding mortality. Okay, and then let's go ahead and let's just quickly take a look at the harvest summary report. Okay, let's go here. Okay, the harvest summary is going to give you all of the latest validations that are available on cases that are available for the surgery date range. So this is going to be different now. This is looking at the surgery dates on the cases for this report. So let me just go ahead, and I think I have cases for 2019. Let's just do that again through the 31st. So the validations that will appear on this report will give you the latest available outstanding validations. And validations are errors or warnings that are related to the report. So you'll see that again, you have a filter. You're able to filter just on op type 1 and 2. So if you only wanted to see those cases, you do have that option to filter. And if you did not want to see any other, then you just deselect that, and it would then update that information within the report. Same functionality of the click, drag, and drop or let go, where it then will display the information within the alerts by submitted record, and then of course the record level validation down below. Okay, you would see all of those. And of course, bringing up the MT365 stat, we do have this item that we will be addressing. So you'll see that I have all of those currently showing up down below as warnings. Okay, and those, of course, will be updated with logic to take a look at the actual time frame, so it will not fire on all records. So just wanted to, again, point that out since I see it pop up here. So the other thing that I wanted to also call out is that when you see this option of no validations outstanding, it's sitting here in the green on the pie chart, that means that there are no existing errors or warnings. These records are ready to go, ready to be submitted. I know that there's a little bit of confusion on seeing a value listed in this column. We are aware of that, and we will be updating this. This is a placeholder at the moment, so it actually does not have an associated error or warning that is showing there. If you'll take a look and see that I selected this one and there are no results. So we will be updating this to not display that. Basically, you know, gives a little confusion of, well, it's showing one, why is it not showing anything down below? So just know that it is a placeholder at the moment, but there are no outstanding warnings or errors on that. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at questions, I think, Leanne. I think at this point, or finish up our slides and then we can go into questions. And I'll leave the app open just in case if we needed to come back and share the screen. So
Okay.
I'll just leave that open.
Great. Thank you, Melanie.
Welcome.
All right. All right, next we'll run through just the remaining slides real quick. You guys have seen all of these slides. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And then we'll get to your questions because we do have a good amount of questions coming in. So the STS IQVIA support plan, I know that I've had several conversations with participants over the last few days regarding the support plan and responses, and STS and IQVIA are in conversations. You know, we'll be having conversations about the current support plan and the way it's set up, and discuss ways on how we can improve our data manager experience and feedback responses. So for now, I know you all contact Tier 1 support. If you can continue to contact Tier 1 support, when you do contact Tier 1, if you could, please copy myself and STSDB at sts.org on your emails to Tier 1. That would be great. And again, per usual, Tier 1, if they're unable to answer your question, you'll be routed to Tier 2 and STS accordingly. And then Tier 2 would work with database vendors as needed, and STS would work with DCRI as needed. But again, we hear your frustrations, and just know that STS and IQVIA are working together to come up with a plan to better enhance the support experience for our data managers. So again, in the meantime, if you could, again, just copy myself on your Tier 1, on your emails to support, as well as STSDB at sts.org. So thank you for your patience as we continue to work through this, and we'll just work through it together, and we'll figure out a plan and come up with ways to enhance the experience. So thank you very much. Our next slide, again, is just the resources. Again, you guys have seen this before. Excuse me, we have our STS National Database webpage, our STS Tech Support at IQVIA for uploader questions, DQR, missing variables, dashboard, reports, passwords, and login issues. Our phone support number for tech support as well. We also have the STS National Database feedback form for you to use for any feedback, good or bad. Please feel free to fill out this form. We'd love to hear from you. We need to know your ideas, things you like and things you don't like. And of course, our resource documents that can be found out on the STS National Database webpage. On the mainly all of these are under the STS, the database transition link. And of course, here is my contact information. Again, if you have questions, concerns, please reach out to me directly. That's what I'm here for, to help understand and help to improve things that are not working. And I'm here for you at any time to answer your questions. So please feel free to contact me directly. My email is here, ljones@sts.org, and my direct line is 312-202-5822. For our database operational questions regarding participation agreements, payments, things like that, please email us at stsdb@sts.org. Next, we have our CHSD webinars. Wanted to just point these out so you can mark your calendars. Again, we have our next user group call next Friday, July 31st, 11 a.m. Central. Our next monthly webinar is scheduled for August 21st at 12 p.m. Central. And also, as I mentioned last week, on our monthly webinar, we have new data manager webinars coming in August for the congenital database. So again, these sessions will be beneficial for our new data managers or perhaps data managers that are still fairly new within their roles. So we'll be discussing resources, how to use your software specs, data specs, the training manual. We'll go over the data collection form, how to submit clinical questions, and other numerous topics. So dates for the new data manager webinars will be coming very soon. So next, we're going to turn things over to you all. I see we have a good amount of questions coming in, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, if you have questions, just please submit those to the Q&A. All right, Mel team, let's go ahead and get started. Let's see, our first question, can you review how to export the information from the missing variable report to Excel? I know you covered how to export to Excel, I think in a different report, and I assume it's the same for the missing variable report. Okay.
It is the same.
All right. Our next question, in the DQR, warning error occurred while record save is a duplicate of existing record. What does this mean?
So that means that in that submission that you uploaded, the system identified that there was a duplicate record, and you should see the operation ID and the patient ID that it's referring to. And basically it's noting that it found that record and it's a duplicate. So that, just take a look at the, if you were to take a look at that result, you will also see that it gives you those two identifiers to let you know that it's already found and it's considered a duplicate.
All right. Thank you, Mel. Our next question from Kelly. After these updates, will we be expected to re-upload any files we have submitted since Harvest opened in June?
No, Kelly. There is no request to re-upload.
Our next question, can we receive a draft of our spring harvest report to review for errors prior to it being published? That's a good question. I don't think that's feasible, just the manner and the way that the data is coming back from CCRI to IQVIA. I just don't see logistically how that could happen. Yeah. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add on that. I don't see how that would happen. I know we never did that before, but it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, I agree. It's Donna. Once the data are analyzed, they'll be posted. I mean, you'll get kind of a sneak preview of the unanalyzed data in terms of your cases and proc IDs and your mortalities and other outcomes that you've entered. But there's really no way to preview it. As soon as the results are made available, they'll be surfaced on the dashboard.
Yeah. Our next question, different prematurity notifications are occurring with different uploads.
Do we have a ticket number, Carrie? The only item that I'm, like off the top of my head that I'm familiar with prematurity was just that one site. It wasn't all sites, where in that instance, the premature variable didn't have a response. But Carrie, if you have a ticket number or if support has given you an ID for reference, if you can share that with us.
Hey, Melanie, this is Carol. Can you hear me?
Yes, Carol, can hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just wondering, do you think it's once you get Carrie's information, you'll be able to tell if it's related to one specific, isolated to one specific vendor file, or something more, right?
Yeah, once we have the information and we can dig in a little further, we can determine, is it, maybe within that specific file, or is it a true vendor across vendor issue? Is it an IQVIA issue? But we would just need to take a look at what's happening there.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out that it takes more than a day to sometimes do that, because there's a lot of investigation. That's why it gets escalated to tier 2, because it's more involved. So it takes quite a bit of time and smart people who know the programming to go in and understand where, or try to diagnose where the issue is coming from. So that's why I think sometimes people expect a quick answer, and we've never had a dashboard in congenital, so this is much different than what we've had before.
Yeah.
But it can take a little bit for those issues to get investigated and sorted out, especially when there's a whole lot of other stuff going on. So I think that's important to also point out that everybody's working really hard to get down to the bottom of things, but it's pretty complicated stuff when we start working with programming and trying to understand that, where the issues are coming from.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. And that actually kind of goes along with our next question from Becky. You know, she had indicated she reached out to support and they were not able to, you know, it goes through tier 1, they were not able to readily identify the problem. So I'm assuming it was escalated to tier 2. She contacted her vendor and they were able to see the issue within a few minutes. So, you know, what should or can participants do on our end to try and troubleshoot a data problem prior to reaching out to IQVIA? So that's a great question, Becky.
Yeah,
I don't know, Melody, if you want to go ahead.
I think in this instance also to keep in mind is that we're working with multiple vendor files. There's multiple, you're able to reach out to that vendor and that vendor knows their system. And so we also have to, there's different formats sometimes, even within the DAT files of how things are lined up, how they're named. So it may take a little bit for within our support side to really take a look at what's happening within the file. And, you know, we just have to, of course, make sure that we're able to try and determine what the issue could be. There's steps that we generally would take. But sometimes it may not be that you can contact them and it's an immediate, well, this is what it is. With your vendor, they know their actual, their application and what's exported. So maybe it is definitely quicker for them to do it. But again, I think just for troubleshooting standpoint, depending on the issue, if it's an issue in which you're trying to upload and the file is giving you an immediate error message, then that is an immediate issue within the IQVIA platform that we would be able to maybe, you know, assist with quicker. But again, it all just depends. So we will try our best to make sure that we can assist as soon as we can, but sometimes it may take just a little bit longer.
Yeah. All right. Our next question, our facility also submits to IQVIA for AHA via third party. Files have date range files have the date range of the data in the file name, which is helpful when examining the DQR. Are there any plans to do the same with STS files submitted to IQVIA?
It says the files has a date range of the data. We did cover that, and you're able to see that information on the critical summary, the date range of the first surgery date and last surgery date. So I don't know if maybe you submitted that before I showed that, but it is available for you for reference.
Yeah. Let's see, our next question for the STS folks, can we trust that using the missing variable report and filtering for op type 1 and 2 as well as mortality and risk model separately would give us the same important missingness that the old data quality report provided? And I would say yes. I think you can trust that. I mean, the missing variable report does identify the risk model variables, the mortality variables, the same way BCRI did with using the 1, 2, 3, and 4 notations. I know those are all in there. I don't know if anyone else has anything they'd like to add to that from the STS side. But I do know that IQVIA has worked hard to provide all of those same identifiers for those risk model and mortality variables into that missing variable report. So. Our next question, I didn't see the STS issue 3131 on the slide. What is happening with 2018 cases being assigned as the index when the index was 2017?
These are patients that one. Yeah, hold on.
Okay, these are patients whose episode of care spanned both years. I know this is on the radar, Dawn. I know we've talked about this, so.
I missed it on the slide. Yes, it is included in the August 1st. So I'll just update the slide because I know you all do refer back to those, but it is included 3131 in the upcoming release for August 1st.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out, Dawn. Our next question, when will procedures be added to the dashboard report? And I know we've talked to IQVIA about this. I think this is in line for one of the enhancements.
That's correct. It would be an enhancement to include that section.
So it's not something that'll be done within the next few weeks, Dawn. It's something that we'll look at to get added to the dashboard. So our next question, we may have been told already, but when will centers be able to obtain observations by surgeon name, by anesthesiologist name, as it was in the past DQR?
Again, we just have to prioritize enhancements. It's another enhancement.
But it is on the list, Dawn, so we hear you. Does STS have any plans of providing centers with mapping of sorts to guide us in utilizing the platform to provide what the old DQR tables used to list?
Yes.
And I know Melanie.
That's a Leanne and Melanie item. So yes, it's coming.
Yeah, we talked about that again yesterday. So Melanie and I are working on that together. So yes, that is coming. And also, I wanted to point out, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we're a few minutes after, but I would like to get through the remaining of these questions. It seems we've got just about 10 more. So if everyone is able to stay on from the STS and IQVIA side, are you all okay with going through the remaining of these questions? Probably for about 10 more minutes, I think we should be able to wrap it up.
Okay, yep, I got 10 minutes.
Okay. All right, in my missing variable report, I know that there are missing values in the perfusion tables. Jeff from Tier 2 saw this, and McCall has provided her ticket number, Melanie, and yes, I know, McCall, that Melanie is aware of this, so this is something that is being looked into.
Yep, Jeff did raise it, so McCall, we definitely have it on the list. It came in recently, that's why it wasn't included on this, on our updates, but we are aware of it.
Right. Our next question is the recommendations to submit all 4 years of data, 16 through 19.
We do have, let me just, but let me clarify that we do have, so know that we did migrate data from DCRI that basically started from the data version of 3.3. So 3.3 and 3.41, whatever data that was provided by DCRI was included in a data migration activity that we did before opening up the actual congenital registry. But if you've done updates to records that potentially could go back, we are, you can go ahead and resubmit those files so that, of course, the updates are included. But if there were no updates that were done, then we have records that were already submitted by you, that were submitted to DCRI. We have those records available within the database. So really, it's your choice. I think that's what we want to come back down to. If you want to go ahead and run the update for that time period, then you can.
Right. Our next question, in the dashboard, why did we create new combined categories instead of leaving the data as was entered? And I don't know if this has been addressed. Weight less than 2.5 kilograms and greater than or equal to 2.5 is actually birth weight and not weight in surgery. Can you change the variable name to reflect that? So if that is labeled, we'll have to look at that label within the dashboard and make sure that is being displayed properly.
Okay. Yep.
So thank you, McCall. Our next question, I'm trying to figure out something on my missing variable report. Is there something that flags the variable procedure as missing? If the procedure-specific factors are marked as none of the listed procedures, when one of the procedures, for example, TOF, no ventriculotomy, should have been selected for the PSF. Sam, let us look at that offline. I'm not sure if that's something that we can answer right now, but that's something I can discuss with Melanie and team. So let me get back to you on that question. Owen from can we just please clarify that duplicate existing record means that the record was previously harvested and already exists in the IQVIA data warehouse, and that this is not an issue and just and it's just a message to the end user. This does not mean that you have duplicate surgeries in one harvest file. So,
yep, it's not duplicate surgeries, correct? Yep.
Message conveyed, Owen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. I think the question regarding receiving a preview of the harvest report was more to do with the validity of the data and the public reporting aspect. My understanding is that current process for the opt-out period for public reporting is based on the harvest cutoff date. Is there any consideration that a center may decide to opt out after they receive their actual harvest report if they feel there is an error in data submission?
I can take that one, Leanne. You can opt out, a participant may opt out of public reporting at any time. If you have questions about that process, please email STSDB and we'll loop in the appropriate staff members.
Great, thank you, Jane. And our last question we have, can a missing variable report or dashboard filter by index procedure for the episode of care?
Yes, the dashboard currently has that filtering capability, so you do see that actual option within the dashboard. We are enhancing the missing variable report within the August 1st, that weekend release that I was referring to, where we will be including a filter for index procedures on the MVR. So that is coming, but you currently have that capability on the dashboard.
Okay, thank you, Melanie.
Before we go, Leanne, this is Carol. McCall put in one more question that Jeanette answered, but I think that we should maybe just talk about just a few seconds. It said, shouldn't it be better now to concentrate on the DQR, including the missing value report to work and abort the dashboard for now? I don't think she's talking about the process at the sites. I think she's talking about what IQVIA is focusing on, because this goes back, we had a call with McCall, and this is kind of what she was talking about. So she's just asking how we're prioritizing where the focus is at. And I think it's important to note that everything kind of works together. So things that are in the data quality report are also on the dashboard, and it's all kind of linked in the background. So I think that's where she was going with that question. And I didn't know if Melanie wanted to, or Jeanette wanted to take it with that understanding, answer with that understanding of her question.
Thanks, Carol. Yes, I was responding to that question from the perspective of how can the sites most effectively focus your review. For preliminary data quality checks, we do recommend the data quality report and the missing variable report. But from our perspective, we do want to ensure consistency of variable presentation within all of those reports in the hopes of minimizing confusion and questions. So to Carol's point, those are all interrelated from our perspective on the platform side, and we are working through updates to each of those areas as quickly as we can, and we really do appreciate the feedback and the questions from all of you as we work to improve this solution.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Jeanette.
Good. It's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. I don't have any other questions, and to be respectful of everyone's time, we're about 11 minutes after the hour. So I just wanted to thank you all for joining today. Also, please, I just want to reiterate, if you have any questions about the harvest, any concerns about follow-up you're receiving, please feel free to reach out to me directly. That's what I'm here for, to help you find and to help us find better ways to make, if things aren't working, talk to me. Let's figure out how we can make things better. So please feel free to contact me anytime with your questions or concerns. I'm more than happy to assist. With that, I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you all very much for your time, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks, Melanie and team, STS team. I appreciate it. I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great job, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.